Welcome to the Invest for More Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark Ferguson, and I am your host. I'm a house flipper. I flip 10 to 15 houses a year. I own 13 rental properties with a goal to buy 100 by 2023. I'm also a real estate agent. I've been licensed since '01. I run a team of 9. We sell close to 200 houses a year. So on this show, we like to interview house flippers, landlords, and the best real estate agents in the business. So stay tuned for some great shows. If you want more information on my rentals, on the numbers, how I buy properties, check out investformore.com. Hey everyone, it's Mark Ferguson with Invest for More. Welcome to another edition of the Invest for More Real Estate Podcast. I've got an awesome guest today. Really excited to talk to Kyle Hiscock. He is a real estate agent in Rochester, New York. I know a lot of our guests are investors, but a lot of the site is geared towards real estate agents as well. And Kyle can give us some insights on his market, how he became a successful real estate agent, and he also works with his father, which, as many of you know, I do as well, or I did until he retired. Kyle, great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Mark. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, no problem. So, first thing I want to start off with, you run an awesome blog, RochesterRealEstateBlog.com, and I just want to give people a shout out if they're interested in real estate in the area. Awesome site. Even if you're not in the area, great site for education on real estate. You do a great job with that blog. So,
thank you. Appreciate it.
Kyle, so how did you first get started in real estate? How did you make that jump into kind of being an entrepreneur, your own self-employed boss, so to speak?
Well, the primary reason I really wanted to get into real estate was the opportunity really to be my own boss was the number one thing. You know, obviously I work with my father, so sometimes there's a difference of opinion who's the boss, but it's about having that flexible schedule, being able to work as hard as basically as hard as you work is what type of reward and income you're going to make. The unlimited income potential in the business is something you can't get working an 8-to-5 job behind a desk for a company or a corporation. It's just not feasible. So really that was number one reason why I got into the business. Obviously, growing up, my father's been in the business for about 28 years. So being around it, it's funny. I actually always said to myself, growing up as a kid, he was out late at night on appointments or showing houses to clients, whatever it was. He wasn't around at home for dinner some nights. And I always said to myself, I absolutely don't want to do that. It's just something I don't want to do. But then after working for about 5 or 6 years for a couple companies locally here in Rochester doing sales, I just realized that, it was something I wanted to do. That it's nice not having to punch a clock and be in the office at 8 o'clock. If I want to go in at 9, but have to work till 7, it's a give and take type of thing. So really that's the main reason why I wanted to get into real estate. Just the ability to have a flexible schedule, but also really the unlimited income potential. As hard as I work is what I'm going to make. If I work hard, I'll make a good living. If I don't, I'm not going to make a good living. So that was really the driving factor behind getting into the business.
Nice. Yeah, I said the exact same thing when I was growing up because my dad had been an agent since '78. And the same thing, I remember sleeping under his desk in the office because he was working late. And I always said, even up through college, I'm never going to get into real estate. I don't want to do it. And then I couldn't find a great job after college. So I'm like, well, I'll just do it part-time, until I find a real job. And well, that turned into 15 years later. I'm glad that happened. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Being around something your whole life like that kind of almost pushes you away in some cases. Very cool. So you were in sales. You went to real estate. You see that transition? Like, I think a lot of people think you have to be a salesman to sell houses, but I'm not sure if that's the case. Did you find that being a salesman helped you sell houses, or was it completely different than trying to sell other things?
The sales position I was in prior to getting into real estate was what I would call high pressure sales type of sale, where you're calling somebody the first time and you're expecting them to make a several $1,000s purchase of your product the first call, the first time out. And really, honestly, that's not the type of sale I wanted to be involved in. I don't like personally being pressured into something when I go shop for a car or TV or whatever it may be. I don't like being pressured into making a purchase on the spot. I like to do my own research and my own due diligence before making a purchase, actually a significant purchase. And that's one thing I see a huge difference between what I came from and real estate. Is real estate's not, it's really not a sales position, in my opinion. You're more of a, I guess, for a lack of better words, an advisor. You're there as a counselor. You're helping people. You're explaining the process. You're giving your advice and input as far as pricing and things you may see as you walk through a home. You might want to point out to a buyer, make sure that they see certain possible defects with a home. And it's just really about educating in real estate more than selling somebody a home. I mean, that's where I think a lot of agents will get themselves in trouble, as they try to push people into making a decision. They try to say, "Oh, you have to buy this house now. It's the perfect house." It's really, and ultimately, as a real estate agent, it's not your decision what type of home they buy or what home they buy. It's ultimately the buyers or whoever you're working with. It's their decision to purchase the home or not. So completely different sales, which is really why I love what I do now versus what I tolerated what I did beforehand, or I liked what I did. I can't say I loved it. So
yeah, no, I totally agree. I think people think you have to be a salesman to sell a house, but you don't. You just have to be educated, knowledgeable, and really it's about helping people make a decision. It's not about selling them anything. So yeah, I completely agree. You don't have to be I'm not a salesman at all. And it's not about having to push people into buying houses. But great advice. So you and your dad did over 100 deals last year. How much time do you think you work doing that many deals in a year? Are you working nonstop? I mean, I know you have a flexible schedule as an agent, but what's your work life look like?
I definitely don't work nonstop. I'll start off by saying that. On a weekly basis, I spend probably, to give you an idea, I spend probably about 20 to 25 hours doing social media, blogging, SEO, things like that to help my website rank higher and obviously perform well in the search engine. And then I'd say probably another 25 hours, 20 to 25 hours showing houses, meeting with clients, doing CMAs or comparable market analysis of properties, prospecting, keeping in touch with past clients. So, it's probably my work week is anywhere between 40 and 60 hours. The schedule is always different, which is, again, a perk to being your own boss, but sometimes it's, not, you might leave the house at 10 a.m. and you might not walk back in the door till 8:30 or 9 o'clock just to relax and do it all again the next day. So my one piece of advice I have for anybody thinking about getting into real estate is it's not a typical banker's hours schedule. It's just not. If you think you're going to work Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5, I don't think real estate's going to be the right fit for you. It's really it's never a predictable schedule. So some weeks you might be working Saturday and Sunday, and other weeks you might not have to work Saturday and Sunday. So it really depends.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally on point with that. And that brings me up something else. Is I have a lot of people who say, "Hey, I want to get started in real estate part time, but I've got a full time job, 9 to 5 job. Do you think it's possible?" And I always kind of think, man, that is really hard to take care of your clients if you can't talk to anybody, you can't show houses from 9 to 5 during the week. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can give some actual insight into that. I got my real estate license in February 2011, and I was part-time for 2 years while I was still working another position here in Rochester. And it's extremely difficult, to be honest. If you're a part-time agent and you can close half a dozen deals a year, you're doing pretty well. Probably working a lot of late nights and evenings and weekends. I jumped into full-time real estate in March 2013. I finally made the leap and decided that it was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. But part-time, it's extremely difficult not being able to be able to, like you mentioned, answer the phone, respond to your emails about that. It's honestly, in my opinion, it's a disservice to a buyer or a seller if you're a part-time agent, because you're not readily available to answer their calls or to set up showings on a listing. It's very tough to be able to do it when you're working 40 hours at another position.
Yeah, I agree. I imagine having your father help you too was a plus for working part-time. So did he help out when you couldn't talk to clients or show them houses?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was huge having him around. Obviously, if I needed something to be shown or a contract to be processed or sent to an attorney, he was available and was able and willing to help me, obviously, with that. So yeah, that was that's my situation was probably a little different than somebody else who may be getting into the business with not a lot of connections or I guess you say quote unquote a mentor to work with. Having that was huge. And again, finally, after a couple of years of doing it part time, I decided I wasn't able to get out of it what I wanted to get out of it.
No, very cool. I'm curious. I know what it has been like working with my father, and there's pros, there's cons. Some things I like, some things I didn't like. Eventually, I got to a point where I ended up buying him out and taking over the business. And maybe I'm a control freak, but I love having control of everything and making decisions. But what are some of the pros and cons you've had of working with your father and learning the business from him?
Well, let's start with the cons. There's very few cons, to be honest with you. We get along pretty well, and most people, they're surprised. My dad over the 28 years he's been in the business really has never had anyone working with him until I got into the business and started working with him. Actually, funny story. My mother worked with him for about 2 weeks and decided after 2 weeks that was going to be the end of that. So, as far as some of the cons, it's just we have a different style in certain things as far as our approaches to things of how we delegate things and things along that line as far as what we want to do ourselves and what we will delegate out to some support staff. But that's really it. As far as the pros, I mean, there's so many to list. It would take me probably an entire hour just to list them all. But the pros, obviously, the first one is always having somebody to ask a question about about a certain scenario that inevitably he's probably experienced over the last 28 years he's been in the business. Obviously having him when I was just getting into the business was huge, just for his advice and input and teaching and how he does certain things in the structure, how he writes a contract. All those things are, you can read a book and take the class for real estate, but until you really get into the field, you don't. I always say you really don't know real estate until you get out and experience it. And then obviously, some of the older, style marketing tactics that he might use as far as direct mailing and postcarding and, obviously the importance of staying in touch with the client base and getting referrals. Those are all things that I would say is more of a older school tactic of real estate marketing. And I bring in obviously the newer style as far as the SEO and social media and the importance of the internet in real estate nowadays, which inevitably is the way it's obviously going at this point.
Right. No, that's great. That's awesome. I'm curious. A lot of people are probably thinking, "Hey, you have a huge advantage because your father helped you get into the business, was a mentor." But other people have that opportunity too. Maybe not with their father, but with selecting, a broker or an office that offers training. And I'm just curious how important you think it is that people select a brokerage that offers, that training, that mentorship to help them get started.
It's huge. If real estate's not the type of business that you really should go at without having some sort of at least training advisor to be around to answer your questions, because it can feel like a very lonely profession if you do. I mean, there's tough situations that you get yourself into or you might be involved in, and you need to have somebody to be able to call and ask a question. Whether it's 8:30 at night, you're writing an offer up and you're not sure how to do something. You have to have somebody who can pick up the phone and at least call or text and say, hey, listen, how do I handle this situation, or how do I write this in the contract? And if you don't, again, it goes back to not being able to service the client properly. If you have to wait till the next day at noon to be able to catch somebody while you're in the office, that house could very well be sold by that point. At that point, you've just lost a home for your client, and that's never good. It can lead to obviously losing the client. So it's really important to always have somebody within at least a phone call, away or reach, I guess you'd say, to be able to ask them a question or get their advice on a certain situation.
Yeah, for sure. I always tell people, they think taking the real estate classes and getting their license will teach them how to sell houses. But those don't teach you how to sell houses. They teach you how to stay within the laws and not get yourself in trouble. And you really, you have to have that mentorship, that training to learn how to actually sell houses, especially in your market, because every market's different. And there's so many techniques, like you said, from you using social media and technology to referrals and database and direct mail. There's so many different ways to do it. Very cool. So speaking of social media, now you have your blog. How has that helped the real estate business? Has that given you more clients, more referrals? How's that worked?
It's honestly been a game changer for me. in the last, I've only been blogging really actively for a couple years. My blog started back in December of 2013. And probably for the first 6 months or so, I was just kind of getting my feet wet, trying to figure out what's working, what's not, And in the last year and a half, really a year and a half, I've seen just a tremendous amount of traction being gained finally. Starting to get leads, starting to get people, subscribing quite a bit, and the traffic to the blog. And obviously, it's all about turning those people eventually into customers, buyers and sellers is what you hope. And again, ultimately, it's one of those things where it's taken a year and a half to really start to see results and to build leads off of it, but it's starting to happen at a pretty frequent rate at this point. So, it's again one of those things where it's not an overnight fix. It's not gonna have you close. It's not gonna help you close 12 houses in your first 2 months of doing it. It's just not gonna happen. And I think that's one of the things that people who are thinking about getting involved with social media or blogging is it's not an overnight lead generation tool. It takes time. So if someone's not patient, it might not be the right fit as far as a marketing tool for their business.
Okay. Yeah, no, it makes total sense. But I imagine what's the nice thing about it now is it's kind of like an ongoing source of leads that you don't have to go out and directly market to or directly, get those leads. You just keep the blog going and updated that those leads come into you kind of without having to do too much, prospecting on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the beautiful things about writing a solid piece of content for my blog is, I may have written it a year ago or 12 months ago, 18 months ago, whatever it may be, and it's still providing results. It's still giving me leads. It's still showing up in the search engines. It's one of those things where, again, the blog, it really doesn't cost you anything other than maintenance fees of a website and things along those lines, in addition to obviously your time. So you put the time in initially, and down the road, you hope it continues to pay back benefits in the form of hopefully leads. So, I can give you a great example of an article I wrote probably beginning of last year, 2014, just discussing some of the programs that are available to some first-time buyers in New York State and in the Rochester area, which really I get anywhere from, depending on the month, anywhere between 100 and 200 organic visitors locally in the Rochester area hitting that article, searching for things like first-time homebuyer Rochester NY, first-time homebuyer programs Rochester NY, because those are things people are searching. And fortunately for me, the article I put together comes up right at the top of the search results on any of the search engines. So again, it's something that's continually paying me back for time that I put in 12 months, 18 months ago in the form of leads.
Very cool. How often do you think you post new articles? Is it once a week, once every couple of weeks? How often are you writing?
Fairly similar to my real estate business. I'm a creature of habit. So every week on Tuesday, I publish my main, I guess you would say, my featured article. So every Tuesday morning, that will be published. And that's usually something, it could be topic, tips for buyers, tips for sellers, information on different, mortgage programs, things like that. I usually try to have, anywhere between that content. Usually I like to have anywhere between 1,500, 2,500 words. I design some nice graphics as well. I promote it up pretty well on social media, and I curate the content quite a bit all over the internet. And really, other than that, I usually have a couple times a week, I do a couple local market reports. Usually 2 to 3 times a week, I'll have market reports for the different communities within the Rochester area, talking about how many houses closed last month in comparison to the prior year, what the average sale price was the last month in comparison to the prior year, what the average days on the market was comparing year over year. And obviously, just giving really information about the local communities in my area, how the real estate market's performing currently.
No, that's great. And I can second what you say. When I run my blog, I get a lot of traffic from SEO. And you have to be consistent with your writing, with your posting. You can't just post a couple articles and then assume Google's going to pick them up and send you all this traffic. It takes time. They look at how often you write and how often you publish things. So, that's great. You've got a schedule, and then people know what to expect too. They follow your blog. They can look forward to new articles and really look forward to new content. So, great job with that.
Thanks.
Now, I know you haven't invested in real estate yet yourself, but you're thinking about it. But you do work with a lot of investors. So I'm curious from people who are looking to invest, looking for a real estate agent. Do you have any tips for investors on how to treat their agent? Realistic expectations for being an investor from the real estate agent side and working with investors. What are your thoughts on that?
The main thing that I always will mention to an investor the first time I talk with them or the first time I meet with them is, I'm going to give you all my effort, time, 100% of the time as far as being there. If you need to get into a property, call me. But it's a two-way street, and a lot of the times what investors fail to remember is that we earn our living as real estate agents by closing deals, and some investors, just for whatever reason or another, aren't loyal. They'll bounce around to 15 different agents. They'll call only the listing agent. I've had people tell me that, if I was a listing agent on a property, I'll work with you because I only work with a listing agent. So the investors I do work with, which it's not a huge amount, probably 20 to 30% of my business comes from that. They're loyal investors. So if they see a property that pops up that they have interest in, they're going to pick up the phone and call. They're not going to call a listing agent directly. So those are relationships that I've built with them, and hopefully it's one of those relationships where if they do see something that they have some interest in, they'll call me and not just call a listing agent or call another agent to get in there. So
Nice. Yeah, and I would completely agree with that. And then another thing that I think investors need to realize is if you're bouncing around with 15 different agents, you're not going to have 15 different agents sending you listings and good deals. You're probably going to have zero agents sending you listings just because of what you said. They don't feel there's loyalty. They have no incentive to help you out. But if you're working with one agent, they know you're loyal. They know you're going to work with them if they find a house. There's a much better chance you're going to send them listings. You're going to go out of your way to really find good deals for them. I mean, is that how you feel too?
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's if you're an agent, you're walking into a home that you're going to be potentially listing, and you think to yourself as you walk through a home, one of the first things you do as a good agent, a good listing agent, is you try to associate the listing you're hopefully going to secure with any potential buyers you may be currently working with, or I may have. So if you walk into a property that may be in need of a little bit of rehab, you're going to think, oh, one of my investors, John, he's looking for something in this area, in this price range. I'm going to call him, see if I can get him in there, as soon as it's listed, or even a day prior before it's listed, so he can take a peek and maybe get the house secured. It's one of those things where if they're loyal, they give themselves almost an advantage. As far as if you're going to list a property that might be a good fit for them, hopefully they're going to be the first person you call.
Right. No, that's exactly how I feel. So turning that around as a real estate agent who works with investors, do you have any advice for other agents who work with investors on how to figure out, which investors might be loyal, which ones might be real buyers versus the real estate investors who are maybe just kicking tires or, shopping around a bunch of different agents?
Usually you can tell if someone's, blowing smoke or not, as far as if they're going to be a loyal investor or not. The primary thing I tell people and other agents when they ask about investors is, it's one of those things where I don't even have my buyers that I work with sign buyer brokerage agreements. I work, and I guess you'd say my father instilled this in me a little bit. I work on a handshake with a potential buyer or investor. I don't make them sign a contract or anything along those lines. I always say, if you're happy with the service I'm providing you, I hope you'll call me. I hope if you see a property, you're going to give me a call, and I'm not going to force you into an agreement and signing a contract, because at the day's end, if you're not happy with the service I'm providing, I don't want you to feel like you can't go elsewhere. And it's two-way street there as well. If I don't feel that an investor or a buyer that I'm working with, we're on the same clicking on all cylinders, I'll tell them, maybe I think you might want to look elsewhere for some other representation. I just don't think our styles fit, or the way we look at how we do business, or the way we're going to do business. I don't think it's a good fit together. So, that's what I always say is to agents who are trying to work with investors, is just make sure they understand that your time is valuable, just like their time is valuable.
Yeah, no, great advice, and I feel the same way as well. Another question: I know you have a huge online presence, huge social media presence. And I know a lot of agents, when they get started in the business, they are inundated with online companies trying to sell them leads. You've got Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, many other sources. Do you guys subscribe to any of those lead sources? What are your thoughts on those online leads you have to pay for?
No, we don't. We don't buy leads from Zillow or Trulia or any of those third party sites. And the primary reason what we find with that is a lot of them are, for lack of better words, is tire kickers, looky loos. They are just looking around. Rarely are they loyal people. They're obviously looking for, at 3, 4, 5 different houses. Honestly, buying for lead services they may work for some. You'll hear stories and you'll hear from some agents saying I closed, 50 deals last year from buying leads from this place or that place. But ultimately, the best type of lead, obviously, is one you can develop through people reaching, finding you online, finding your blog, finding your website, reading something maybe you wrote, finding you on social media. So those are the types of people that you really want, the leads you want to get, are people that have been following you, have done their research, realize and understand quality of service that you're likely to provide them, whether it's they read testimonials or, they go on to, Google Plus and they see a place page with a bunch of different reviews from past clients, things like that. Those are all the types of leads that are actually going to, in most cases, are going to turn into a solid lead and hopefully at the day's end a paycheck and money in your pocket versus having to chase down people and call 3 different times just to see if the lead that you get from a pay for lead service is actually a live human being.
Right. No, yeah, there's a lot of rumors out there that a lot of those leads they send out aren't even real leads, that they're, who knows where they're coming from. But yeah, I know what you're saying. We've tried Zillow, we've tried a few of them, and had the exact same experience. Very, very few of them turn out to even be worth pursuing. And like you said, there's loyalty there because all they see, they know you a name and a picture, and that's it. And they're probably contacting 3 or 4 other agents, just going down the list. And yeah, but if you build your own website like you have, people can find that, read your article. It's like, oh, it's a real person. They have a connection to you. Much more likely to be loyal. Same thing if you're meeting people in person, getting referrals from past clients. There's so much more loyalty there than those paid lead sources. They make it sound really good when they talk to you on the phone, though. They're good at selling, but yeah, in reality, we've had the same experience. It has not worked out. So yeah, moving on to your social media. Besides your website, you guys are all over the place on social media. How have you developed a social media strategy, and how has that helped your business?
The thing with social media, and I think where a lot of agents fail, I guess you'd say, for lack of better words, with the social media, is they just don't understand that social media is about being social. Go figure. But really, a lot of agents will go on there. They'll start blasting their listings. Check out this new listing, this, that, and the other thing. Unfortunately, the reality is people aren't going onto Facebook or Twitter really to look for new listings. There's other portals and websites that they can find that information about new houses. The social media strategy that we've developed is more, again, it goes along the lines of is building reach and getting our content and our information and knowledge that we share on our blog in front of potential buyers and sellers. Low pressure, whether it's sharing an article about how to buy and sell a home at the same time, or an article on how to buy your first condominium, whatever it may be. It's about reaching prospective buyers and sellers and just really giving them educating them, giving them knowledge on things maybe they have interest in. So really we focus on that more than anything.
No, that's great. And do you have a favorite social media outlet? Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. What do you like the best?
Depends on what you're asking. As far as interaction with other agents across the country, or are we talking about? Are you asking what my favorite is for gaining prospective clients?
For prospective clients, we'll do that first.
All right, prospective clients. I'd say honestly, one of the my favorite social media outlet would be Twitter. I would say only because there's so many people on Twitter. There's ways you can target your local area as far as the different hashtags you use. Obviously, you build a following on Twitter, and hopefully you reach people that eventually are looking to purchase a home. And again, it's one of those things the same as a blog is it's not instantaneous. It's not the reality is going to see a tweet you sent out this morning, pick up the phone in an hour and call you and say, "Oh, hey, I saw that awesome article you wrote about buying a condo. I'm looking to buy a condo this year." It's just not the reality. The reality is you hope that somebody follows you, local buyers and sellers, and they're checking out the information you're sharing. They're clicking on the articles you're sharing. They're trying to see who you are as a person. Most people online, consumers, already have done their research before they pick up the phone and call you. They know who you are. They know your rates. They know how long you've been in the business. Just that's the power of the internet. So it's all about putting your best information out there, and that's why I like Twitter is my favorite for reaching prospective clients and buyers and sellers.
Nice, very nice. And then you said something interesting too before that. That's how I met you. Is you have a huge network of agents across the country through your blog, through social media that you reached out to, that you include in your articles and mention. Has that helped your business locally, having that big network of agents?
As far as receiving incoming referrals or things along those lines?
Yeah.
I can't say that I've gotten any direct referrals from any of the folks that I interact with frequently on social media to this point. Whether that'll be the case in another 2-3 years if we talk, when we talk again, could be a different answer. But, the reality of that is one of the most important things about social media and blogging and SEO is finding one of my biggest pieces of advice I could give to an agent would be find a group of people that is what they're doing is working. It's pretty easy to tell if you go on any social networks, social media website. You can see pretty quickly who knows what they're doing, what's working well, who's posting things, and they're getting a lot of comments and interaction from whether it's other agents or buyers and sellers, whoever it is. If you see somebody who's sharing an article and nobody's commenting on it, nobody's sharing it, nobody's giving it a thumbs up on Facebook or whatever it is, it's probably because what they're doing, they're not doing it correctly. So if you're going to get involved in social media and blogging, my biggest recommendation is to find a group of folks that know what they're doing, other agents across the country.
Nice. And I imagine, when you're trying to reach a local audience with SEO, with social media, it may seem weird that you're networking and reaching out to an audience that's national, but the more people you get going to your articles, the more social media connections you have, the more likely those local people will find you, and the more likely, Google and other sites will promote that to local people too. So there is huge advantages to getting as many people as possible looking at your stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a very simple SEO principle is the more social sharing you get on a piece of content, the more that Google's going to put weight on that it's a solid piece of content. If you have 1,000 tweets on a piece of content you wrote, Google's going to give that more weight than somebody who wrote something that has a half a dozen tweets, because it just to them is showing that the piece of content is quality enough for 1,000 people to share it versus a piece that might only have half a dozen or a dozen shares on it. So that's again goes back to building those relationships with other agents, and a lot of people don't understand why there is such a tight net of agents across the country on certain social media websites, because they think to themselves, well, how's that putting more money in my pocket right now? Again, it goes back to it may not be right at this current moment, but in the long run, it's helping your content rank, like you mentioned, higher in your local searches.
Right, exactly. Very cool. All right, so we've talked a lot about technology, social media. Done a great job so far. Let's get back to the basics. How important is a database and past clients to real estate agent success?
Without it, I can tell you probably won't survive in the business. It's absolutely vital to the success of a real estate business. If you don't stay in touch with past clients and try to get referrals from them, it's very tough in this competitive day and age with technology and the internet to rely strictly on 100% new leads or a 90% new lead, 80% even. I'd say, the majority, I'd say about 65% of my business comes from past clients and referrals. So it's about staying in touch. And we actually use a program, and it's a pretty well-known program across the country called Top Producer, which is basically a CRM that allows us to keep in touch with past clients, basically have a drip campaign set up in an email. We send out monthly newsletters through email to past clients, and basically it's just about keeping your name out there in front of them. soon as somebody forgets that you're in the business, you're pretty much you're finished at that point. I mean, it's always somebody's always asking about, do you know any agents? If you bought a house, if you sold a house, and if somebody doesn't remember you, as soon as somebody asks that question, somebody else will know an agent. That's one thing we always kind of joke about is everybody knows a real estate agent, and most people know a couple of real estate agents. So it's all about keeping those relationships with past clients and trying to get referrals from those past clients is really the name of the game. It hasn't changed.
Right. Now, you said you send out emails and newsletters. Do you also do regular old mail pieces, postcards, things like that as well?
Yeah, we do. We usually send out probably every quarter. We send out a different postcard to the client base. For example, right around the beginning of the football season, we send out a Buffalo Bills schedule because we're about an hour from Buffalo. So we send out a schedule on a postcard, and it's got our photos and our contact information on it. And it's really, again, it's just about keeping your face out there. Certainly every year we do monthly or yearly calendars for magnetic calendars that go on the fridge, again, to our client base. So it's trying to at least stay in connection with your past clients. I'd say probably once every quarter at the minimum, whether it's via mail or direct mail, whatever it may be, phone calls, whatever it is.
No, great stuff. We send out a Bronco schedule too. Yeah, we send out calendars. We do this basically the same thing, kind of a mix of email and newsletters and actual physical things that people can stick on their fridge, remember you by. So great stuff. Very cool. Well, Kyle, you've done an awesome job. I think that's about all I've got on my end for questions. I mean, do you have any advice for agents or prospective agents who want to get to the business about, how to succeed, how to get started, what should they watch out for if they want to become an agent?
My biggest piece of advice, again, to a first an agent who's looking to get into the business is making sure that number one, you join a broker that has the proper tools to train you, has the proper support staff and mentors available to be able to give you advice when you need it. From there, it's up to the individual person how hard they want to work and how much time and effort they want to put into it. Real estate's not the type of business to get into if you only want to work 20 to 30 hours a week. It's just not. It's always evolved, especially now in 2015 with the internet, the power that has. It's always changing. It's never going to be, you put something on the internet and it's going to just continually stay the same, and this is how it's going to be for the next 15 years. It's always about bettering yourself, reading different publications and tips and articles and things like that. So, but I mean, ultimately, again, it comes back to finding the right broker. I think would be the number one piece of advice I could give to a new agent.
No, I totally agree. I think a lot of agents are seeing the low fee, I like to call them no service brokerages, where it's just you on your own, but you pay the lowest fee possible to save most of your commission, and they say, oh, hey, I can make more money on each deal. But if you don't sell any houses, you don't make more money if it's a low percentage. So yeah, pick the broker that will help you sell houses, even if it's a higher commission. That training is so worth it.
Agreed 100%.
Very cool. All right, so awesome job. I really appreciate you being on the show. You've got your blog, RochesterRealEstateBlog.com, where people can check you out, read your great articles. You do a really good job. If people want to contact you, is that the best place to go, or are there other ways to get a hold of you?
Yeah, that's always a good place. Or via email is always a good one. I can be reached at KyleHiscockNagel.com. That's NOTHNAGLE.com. And I'm always happy to answer questions, whether it's about real estate, social media, search engine optimization, whatever it is. I'm always willing to try to help share my knowledge and expertise with others. So feel free to reach out.
Great. Yeah, thanks a lot. And we'll have links to your email, to your blog as well on our post for this podcast. So really appreciate it. Great job. And yeah, hopefully we can talk again soon.
Absolutely, Mark. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care.